My name is Jena Collins, and I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, a city of neat streets, old trees, and family portraits that hide more secrets than smiles. I'm 27 now, a trauma nurse at the very hospital where my story both unraveled and came full circle. People think nurses are built from compassion and grit, but most of us carry invisible bruises from our own pasts. We learn to soothe others because no one ever soothed us. That was true for me, anyway. Growing up, I was the firstborn, the easy one. I walked early, talked early, and didn't cry much, a fact my dad liked to remind people at dinner parties as if it made parenting me effortless. Then came Lyla, my younger sister, my father's obsession. She was 3 years younger, with thick curls, a delicate voice, and a habit of making everything about her. That's not to say she wasn't lovable. She was. But she was also volatile. She could cry for hours over the wrong colored socks, panic during thunderstorms, and collapse into hysterics if her toast wasn't even enough. She was diagnosed with high-functioning anxiety at age 6. And suddenly, our entire family dynamic shifted. Every decision, from vacations to what we ate for dinner, revolved around keeping Lyla comfortable. My parents walked on eggshells. I learned to walk quietly behind them. When I got my period for the first time, I told my school nurse instead of my mom because that same day, Lyla had a really bad episode over a math test. When I got into UNC Chapel Hill with scholarships, we didn't celebrate. Lyla had just been dumped, and Dad said we needed to be sensitive. That word haunted me for years. Even when I became a nurse, the old pattern followed me. Be useful, be silent, be small. I had just finished a double shift that Tuesday evening when the crash happened. I was driving my used Honda Civic down Glenwood Avenue, watching the rain beat against the windshield, thinking about leftovers and sleep, when a pickup truck ran a red light and hit me at full speed. I don't remember the impact itself, just the sensation of glass exploding and a hot, suffocating weight across my chest. The next time I opened my eyes, I was in a trauma bay in my own hospital. Machines were whirring. My ribs felt like someone had crushed them in a vise. I had internal bleeding, a collapsed lung, 3 fractured ribs. I was drifting in and out of consciousness when a nurse leaned over and whispered, "We've contacted your father. He's on his way." For the first time in years, I let myself feel hopeful. Maybe this time he'd see me. Maybe this would finally be the moment where I didn't have to compete for his concern. Maybe he'd sit by my side, hold my hand, and say, "I'm here, Jena. I'm not going anywhere." Asterisk 2 hours passed. No Dad. Then the automatic doors burst open. I heard his voice immediately, that familiar bark of worry. "Where's Lyla? Is she okay?" She said Jena was in an accident, but she sounded hysterical. My heart dropped. I opened my mouth to speak, but the oxygen mask stifled my words. Then I saw him. He ran straight past my ICU curtain, not a glance, not a pause, and turned the corner toward the family waiting room, where I imagined Lyla sat crying, dramatic, draped in her usual storm of emotion. I don't remember crying. I remember the silence. The nurses in the room exchanged glances like they'd seen this before, like maybe they'd known families that forgot which daughter was lying on a gurney. He didn't come in to see me for another 45 minutes. When he finally walked in, he looked tired. Not broken, not panicked, just tired. "Hey, kiddo," he said gently, standing at the foot of my bed like I was some distant cousin. "Glad you're awake. It's been a lot tonight." I stared at him through puffy eyes. "A lot? For who?" It continued. "Lyla was really upset. She thought you died on the way to the hospital. She's in total shock." I wanted to scream, but instead I nodded. Because that's what Jena does. She nods. She understands. Later that night, as I lay in that sterile room with nothing but monitors and a shallow beeping heartline to keep me company, I thought back to every time I let myself believe that one day he'd choose me. I thought of birthdays skipped, awards ignored, how he'd call her his miracle baby while I stood off to the side holding the camera. She had on a hoodie 2 sizes too big, sleeves pulled over her hands like she was still 15. Her eyes were swollen. "Jena," she whispered. I was so scared. When I heard about the accident, I couldn't breathe. I had a full-blown panic attack in the car. Dad had to pull over. Of course he did. I'm fine, I said, even though I wasn't. You didn't have to come. She flinched like I'd hit her. Don't be mean. But I wasn't being mean. I was just done pretending that my survival was somehow a burden to the people who claimed to love me. 2 weeks later, I was discharged. No one offered to help me pack. Lyla cried when I said I'd take a cab home. Dad's busy, she explained. He's been helping me get back into therapy. Your accident really triggered me. I didn't answer. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat on the bathroom floor, bandaged, sore, breathing through the tightness in my ribs, and made a decision. I was done. Done waiting for apologies that would never come. Done hoping for a father who could only see me when I was bleeding on a hospital bed. Over the next few months, I focused on healing, physically, emotionally, all of it. I went back to work slowly. I started journaling. I told my therapist the whole story. And then one day, I unfollowed my dad and Lyla on social media. It was quiet, unceremonious, the kind of closure no one notices but you. A year later, I gave a lecture at a nursing conference about invisible trauma and emotional neglect. I told a room full of strangers about a girl who lay bleeding in the ICU while her father ran to someone else. They cried, not because it was rare, but because they had lived it too. My name is Jena Collins. I am more than someone's afterthought, and I will never wait on a hallway hug again.